So me becoming a police officer, I think it was kind of a, it wasn't like the fourth generation family that had police officers all throughout. I actually went to college to be an education major, and partway through I switched. Criminal justice kind of caught my eye, so I went that route, and shortly after school, when I got out, I was fortunate enough to get a job here at Newport. It's definitely for me like the coaching and mentoring aspect that I really like about being a police officer. So I think that's what really drew my interest, and I still try to keep those same values and thoughts today after being here for 17 years. So that's kind of where I was at.
For me, it's a little bit different story. I had interactions with police officers when I was 18, and that I ended up washing cruisers and fire trucks for about 3 months in the summer, and then that made me, I was at the state police barracks. It made me want to become a police officer because I really screwed up. They had me wash cars and gave me a second chance. So.
I didn't do college. I was in the service industry, worked at a restaurant. I was really good with customer service. I've always wanted to help people. That was just kind of my nature. And so Karina, my wife and I knew we wanted to have kids, wanted to have a career. I didn't see the restaurant having insurance and stuff like that. So really for me, it was a career choice where it worked out that I could help people, or at least I hope, and I feel like I still are helping people. And I like to drive fast and like guns, and so it worked out. But it was definitely because of being able to give back and helping people, and it definitely has been rewarding.
A similar interaction with Dave. I was younger, and it just drew me to it after that, where I went to college for criminal justice and started work here right after college.
So for me, definitely, I'm not a big city kind of person, so the goal was definitely kind of always to get back to like my hometown area, and this just happened to work out for me. But yeah, definitely a small community. I like that you kind of know everybody, and you get to know everybody if you don't know them. So I definitely like that aspect of having a small community. So
I grew up, my family was always involved with the fire department, public service. My grandfather was the constable in Derby line for years back in the 40s. I went to college, but I started with the state police, and I quickly learned that that was not the agency for me, because you covered all these towns and faraway places. And I quickly changed over to Newport Police early in my career. So.
Yeah, so I think, having been here, these guys have all actually been in law enforcement longer than I have. So I think we could probably sit here for days and talk about stories after story. But for me, it's like, when I first started out working nights and stuff like that, it was the going home knowing that you made a difference. Maybe you called the judge at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and you kept the child safe that night, or maybe you were able to keep an adult safe that night, or get them services that they needed down the road to help them with that. A couple other things that I'm kind of proud of was I had 2 canines pretty early on in my career. So for 8 years, I handled 2 dogs. 3 years in a row, we won the top Iron Dog Award for the state, which was pretty cool. And then, of course, now being the chief, like I started here 17 years ago, kind of worked my way up through. So it's kind of nice to be able to, put all that time and effort into this department, and not be able to like be the chief of the department and kind of see where I want it to go from here. So
I got to train Royce when he first started, but early on in his career, we had a medical event that happened. We're kind of at a shift change, and lady had gone off the road right here onto the courthouse lawn, and Royce and I went in and we did CPR, but she had a baby in the car, and later on that baby came here as an explorer and then as a dispatcher, and she always remembered that story from her mother, and then it was Royce and I that were there. So that was kind of cool.
For me, it was being at the high school as a school resource officer. I've done the DARE program at Newport Elementary for 20 years, but being at the school, just having that connection with the teenagers and being involved at that level on a daily. It was nice being a police officer. We deal with people sometimes at their worst, and we have like a snapshot. It's an hour, maybe 2 hours. and we don't see him again, and possibly until the next issue. What was nice at the school, again, being that community police officer minded person, I was there multiple times a day. It might have been only 5 minutes, but I saw him multiple times a day, 5 days a week, to kind of stay in contact if there was an issue, whether it was parents, school, boyfriend, girlfriend, other students, obviously. It was tremendously rewarding, and that was probably the best.
Yeah, so I'll just talk about our department specifically. So within our department itself, we have an officer that's assigned to the SIU. So he investigates child abuse, sexual assault cases, stuff like that. So that whole goal of that program is designed specifically for all those cases. So it's all targeted towards that. We have a stop grant as well that is targeted towards domestic violence. So that's follow up on cases that maybe the shift before had a lodging for any kind of domestic violence that might have happened, and then they can follow up on it. And not only are they able to follow up on it the next day and be thorough, but these cases that are getting brought to the court are prosecuted at a higher level because of the thoroughness of the case. So the person that's assigned to the stop grant will follow up, and they'll also make sure that the victim's not being contacted by the offender, which is, we've never had that ability to do that before because resources usually are limited and it ties up a lot of time. So with the dedication of that one spot, it really helps with that. We also have a canine in-house. We have a member assigned to the Vermont Drug Task Force that specifically just works on drugs coming into this area or that are already in this area. Those are all undercover stuff that happens with that. And as I'm sure you guys saw with the canine, he recently won an award for the best team in Vermont for the year, which was an outstanding accomplishment. And that goes kudos to Josh because he puts a ton of time in with him and his dog Ozzy. And then we also have a RAD program that actually Officer Lancaster is part of, and that is rape, aggression, defense. So he will teach defensive tactics to age ranges anywhere from
Gone down to 12, but
we've gone down to 12 with parental consent, but it's usually from 12 to like that 21-year-old range is what we're looking for, somewhere in there. And that program's been really successful. Obviously with COVID, some of that stuff got put on hold for a little while, but himself and the sheriff at Orleans County, Sheriff Harlow, both are instructors for that. So hoping they can get that back up and running. And also we have the Youth Explorer program. So I can't say enough good things about that. And again, COVID kind of put that on hold for a while. But the amount of officers, dispatchers, some have gone on to be federal agents, some have gone on to be state troopers, some have been Newport officers, some have been dispatchers. And it's really a good program to get the youth and the community involved if they're interested in law enforcement. Or honestly, it doesn't even have to be in law enforcement, it's just life skills in general. And it really helps them out. And Royce is a big part of that too. So those are some of the things that we have available within the PD and I think most people are aware of those resources that we have, but just to reiterate that.
Besides the in-house things that we have and the things that the chief said, we also have a lot of community outreach and a lot of people in the community that we can reach out to for resources. Other the umbrella program, things of that nature, but also little things like if we all of a sudden need resources to help us in something, we know who to reach out for, things we've learned over the years, people we've learned that can help us and do things for us.
Yeah, it certainly has been impacted by COVID. We were I don't want to say we were put on hold, but we were kind of put on hold because we were trying to keep our staff safe because we have to be able to come to work every day. So it made it tough for us for the last year. Now that things are kind of opening up, we're back to normal a little bit. As far as volunteering within the police department, and don't take this the wrong way, but it's hard. It really is. Like there is so many requirements that are not even put in place by me. They're put in place by the state. Like anybody that walks through this front door and has access to the dispatch center has to go through like a background check. They have to take a test to be able to even be in here. And the amount of confidential nature stuff that we do within the department makes it tough. We do have a ride along program that people can sign up for. And I definitely encourage that at any of the community stuff that I go to, if you're interested, or if you just want to see like the inner workings of how the police department functions on a daily basis, you can get a lot out of coming in and doing a ride along. And any one of the officers that are working will be more than happy to take whoever on one of those ride alongs. There is a paper form that we have to fill out. There's a consent that you have to sign, and you know, they got to know right up front, they might see some stuff that they might not like, but I think it's a good way, you know, as far as if somebody wants to come in. You asked about volunteering. I don't know a whole lot of other ways unless we're doing some community outreach stuff. If we go do like coffee with a cop somewhere and somebody wants to come help facilitate that, or they want to be there with us to help facilitate that, it's stuff like that. You know, I don't know of any other else. Maybe you guys can.
The only other thing that we've had was we had somebody, well, with the Explorers for sure, but we had somebody dispatched, volunteered like 1,000 hours. I remember them getting a plaque.
Yeah.
So that's the only other thing I can think of over the years.
Yep. So I think more of the volunteer stuff comes for like the community outreach stuff that we do, you know, within the community. Newport does not have a citizen advisory board. Obviously, you guys are aware we have a city council. It's very similar. Basically, the council is voted in by the community members, and they're representing the community. So anything that comes through the community, like if you have an issue with something, they will usually bring it to the city council, and the city council will either, if it's a police function, they'll bring it to me, or whatever it is. But there's not a specific advisory board that is set up just merely for law enforcement. So a lot of the smaller towns will have, you know, they'll use their city council as their citizen advisory board. These pamphlets you can find actually in our front lobby. And this actually says on the top, commendations or complaints. It says right here. And then if you open up this front page, it basically just tells you the steps to go about making a commendation or a complaint. And these are available right in the lobby. And that's how you can go about that. And you can contact any officer, you can email me, you can call, whatever it is, and it kind of walks you through the step for that. So that's the process for that.
Nothing in the formal. We did start one. It was one neighborhood that was having some issues, so they really kind of spearheaded it and got it together. We do have some of the pamphlets, and if anybody does have interest, I'm sure the chief would be okay with it. So we did have some of the information, and as a citywide no, it was one specific area that really pushed or came together, I should say, and had something formal.
And I have been asked that before at some of the community stuff that we go to, and you know, a lot of it is, you know, like we're a small community, right? We talked about that at the beginning. Like everybody knows everybody, and if you see something that doesn't look right, you need to call and say something. So we've always the slogan came out. This was before I was chief. I think it was back in Chief Duquette's day of see something, say something, and that's what we try to promote with anything. Because if we don't know about it, then we can't help fix the problem and those kinds of things. So.
And it's nice that we are able to talk and be in every neighborhood, and people do come to us and tell us. So, you know, there are some times where it's needed, but most of the time we have a pretty good relationship with everybody in the city.
So we have our Facebook page, which I'll admit I'm not a social media guru, and I tend to try to run that, and it's probably not the best, but I do what I can. But a lot of our stuff and initiatives we put on there. So we do, we're getting back into the Governor Highway Safety Program. So we'll be coordinating with Orleans County Sheriff to do like click it or ticket, distracted driving, DUI stuff. We will use the marquee that's on the causeway for any kind of like upcoming events that we have that are, you know, responsible just for the city or police stuff. And of course the city website is always on there, so if we have a big event coming up for that. But I would say most of the stuff that we put out within the police department is usually going to be found on our Facebook page.